2 months now, I've been putting out weekly videos, weekly law videos, and social justice videos. I really like your comments. If you guys are enjoying the videos, if there's anything that you'd like me to talk about, and yeah, let's get to the video. Internet regulation, or should I say internet censorship in South Africa. This video is for all online content providers, whether you putting out content meaning videos on social media, websites, or other online platforms. So basically, the president's recently signed the Films and Publications Amendment Act, and recently there've been regulations that have been published to kind of flesh out the Films and Publications Act. So this is what so if you watched my previous video, you would have heard me talking about how the internet in South Africa is vastly regulated by the Films and Publications Amendment Act, right? And there's a lot of things that I'd like to discuss, but the first thing that I want to discuss about this act is the classification or the self-classification requirement that is required for films and publications in South Africa. Right, so if you distribute films or publications online, you will have to register, submit all your online content, videos, games, to the Films and Publications Board for them to classify. Alternatively, you can self-classify your work. But if you self-classify your work, you will have to register for permits and certificates, and there's vast other administrative requirements that you have to adhere to in order to be able to self-classify your content. So all content that's put out that's not classified could be struck down by the Films and Publications Board of South Africa. So already the big fuss that everyone's making is that it's unbeknown to us how much they're going to charge us in order to put out our films. Definition of a film in terms of the Films and Publications Amendment Act means any sequence of visual images recorded in such a manner that by using such recording, such images will be capable of being seen as a moving picture, and includes any picture intended for exhibition through any medium using the internet or device. So as you can see that any video that you post online will have to be registered or classified in terms of the Films and Publications Act before you put out this. So I hope that definition of film like kind of awakes you to how serious this act is, right? So there's been a lot of confusion around this act and a lot of commentary about the same, but I'd like to talk about a few confusing elements of this act, and we'll try to dissect and try to get some understanding of these types of things. So the first issue with this act is that people are of the view that every single film, publication, or game that's released has to be classified by the Films and Publications Board prior to it being distributed, right? So my answer to this is that it is not clear whether every single film and publication has to be classified before it is distributed by the before it's distributed by you, sorry. So, but however, having said that, if I had to choose a side, I would believe that as far as this act is written, though if you strictly read this act, you'd find that indeed every single video or film that you push out online has to be classified and has to be registered, and each and every single content has to be paid for before it is distributed. And if you don't believe me, read section 24A of the Films and Publications Amendment Act and you'll probably understand what I'm saying. So like your primary school teacher has probably told you that there's exceptions to every rule. So if the film or publication or game that you wanting to distribute is considered to be an advertisement, then you wouldn't have to be required to submit it to the Films and Publications Board. Also, if you're a member of the Press Council, you also wouldn't have to be required to submit the content to the Films and Publications Board. But however, everything else, as far as this act and regulations are stated, have to go through the Films and Publications Board and have to be paid for before it's distributed to the country. So the second confusion that a lot of people have is that what is the intent of this act? Is this act intended to regulate the internet, or is it intended to censor people, right? Because when it was a bill, it was considered to be the Internet Censorship Bill, right? So my answer to that is both. This act does a lot to regulate and censor content that gets distributed in South Africa. And the first thing that I'd like to say is that the big thing about this act is revenge porn, child pornography, and things of those kinds that offend people will be struck down by the Films and Publications Board if brought forward by anyone or distributed online by everyone. So that's a good thing. But when you look at the other elements of the act, the Regulate Act, I think the intent is good. And what I mean about intent, so generally the intent of the act is good, right? And what I mean about intent is that if you look in China or also somewhat in America, you'll see they have this thing of censorship without due process. And what I mean by censorship without due process is that if there's something that's published online or distributed online that their regulators feel is inappropriate, they can strike it down, right? But if now in South Africa we're able to get a method, and I'm not saying this method, but we're able to get a method where content is approved prior to it being distributed, then if someone is offended by your content, then they'll have to go through the due process of filing a complaint and all those things, and it wouldn't be just struck down like without question like they do in China and somewhat in America too. You've seen the doctor that claims that she can heal people with that pill. I'm not too sure and I can't pronounce it, so don't ask me to pronounce it. But that was struck down too. In China, if the ruling party feels that what you're saying is offensive to them or against what they believe, then that also won't be published. It will be struck down without any due process. So with this process, when they then attack your content, whatever it may be, then it will have to go through the process of sorry about that. So there would have to be some sort of dispute resolution process in order to ascertain if the content that you have distributed is inappropriate or not, right? So if I'd have to choose, I would choose the process where your rights are protected than a whistleblower just making noise and then them taking it down. An example that I'd like to make is that Leon Schuster's content was recently taken down, the blackface and all those types of things. A lot of people felt that it wasn't offensive. A lot of people felt that it was offensive. If this film went through a process of it being classified and it being approved, then when there was those objections, to the content, then they wouldn't have just taken it down. There would have been a dispute resolution process, and there would have been a process of attacking the content, and his rights would have been more protected because they would have followed a process rather than this thing of just censoring content without any process. I don't know if I said that well, but yeah, thank you. So if there's one takeaway that you can get from this video, I feel like you should remember that when this act comes into effect, if it does come into effect, every single film publication, other than advertisements and what considers to be press, will have to be submitted to the Films and Publications Board and will have to be classified by them. And this process will have to be paid for every single little video on every single platform. So it's very important for people to speak up and for people to engage in comments about this act, because not only will they not be able to do this, and I can say that on the record, but there has to be another way to regulate the internet than this process has been suggested, right?